I do not want to make this goddamn video, but I have to. I have lots of disagreements with a lot of different people, even zealous arguments about ideas and principles. But I rarely bother talking about personalities in public because who cares? What's the point? It just causes drama. It doesn't really matter if everyone else likes who I like or trusts who I trust. Who cares? I've shared a stage with plenty of people that I vehemently disagree with on various topics and subjects. And there's other people that I philosophically mostly agree with, but I don't particularly like them on a personal basis for one reason or another. They're people I wouldn't hang around with on a social basis. And freedom of association deals with that just fine. Freedom of disassociation in particular. I decide who I interact with. I decide who I hang around and who I keep my distance from. And that works fine in the vast majority of cases. But this video is about something way beyond that and way worse than that. To get right to the point, there's now a rather glaring and persuasive heap of evidence showing that Adam Kokesh and some of the people who are working for him who are helping him pursue his political aspirations are not just philosophically and tactically misguided, which I've discussed those things before. They're genuinely malicious and dangerous. They think and they function like politicians. They desire power, and they are perfectly willing to terrorize and destroy people for merely disagreeing with them or for being critical of their political agenda. And based on recent very damning evidence, those of us who do actually believe in self-ownership and non-aggression and all that good stuff, we need to see through the political bullshit and the play acting. We need to see past the mask of good intentions that all politicians wear to see the monster beneath. Might as well be blunt. And to distance ourselves from it quickly and thoroughly. It pisses me off that I even need to talk about this. But at this point, I feel compelled to because of something that recently happened. This isn't just about ideas and tactics. This is about people engaging in premeditated harassment, stalking, sabotage, threats, and possibly violence against other people in retaliation for those other people expressing their opinions. In short, the Kokesh campaign seems eager and willing to use any means necessary to destroy critics and detractors. And having been a vocal critic of his campaign myself, I'm none too happy to see the Stalinist mentality and tactics that they're apparently willing to stoop to. Now, for those who haven't heard, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you an abbreviated synopsis of something that just happened or something that just came to light, and then I will refer you to a video made by a friend of mine, Patrick Smith. He more thoroughly goes through the actual evidence and does a very fair, unbiased, objective analysis of the thing. But I'm going to give the short version, and you can go there if you want more details. Short version is this. A guy named Graham Smith, who has a presence on Steemit under the name Kafka Anarchy, who has been vocally critical of Adam Kokesh's campaign and his attempts to seek political office, something I've been critical of too, by the way. He was recently sent screen captures from a discussion that happened back in May, which seems to show... No, I'm not going to say seems anymore. The amount of evidence, again, you can check it out on Patrick's video. I'm not going to say alleged. I'm not going to say seems to. There is no doubt in my mind that it's legitimate. Which show Ben Farmer, who at the time was Adam Kokesh's chief political strategist. I had plenty of argument run-ins with him and about tactics and philosophy and stuff. He was the main dude pushing Adam's campaign. Graham was sent screen captures showing Ben Farmer trying to hire someone to engage in stalking and doxing and harassment and threats and sabotage, basically various forms of terrorism against Graham in an effort to shut him up and basically ruin his life for the sin of having been publicly critical of Adam's political aspirations. I'll show you some excerpts, but again, if you want more details and want to see more of the whole discussion, below you can find a link to Patrick Smith's video about it. And I'll link to Graham's original Steemit post that he posted after finding out about all this, after he was sent those screen captures. Now, this exchange it's Ben Farmer, Adam Kokesh's chief campaign strategist at the time, talking to someone he wanted to hire to basically ruin Graham's life. And it starts with Ben Farmer saying, "We've got a troll and he's really fucking with our money over on Steemit." Notice the mentality right off the bat. This is how the discussion starts. Right off the bat, it's about money. Graham Smith was saying stuff on Steemit, was expressing his opinions, and was persuasive enough that as a result, Kokesh campaign contributions were down. He was getting less financial support. So after Ben calls Graham a troll in this discussion for saying what he thinks, he also says that Graham is completely unreasonable, and so Ben wants some way to shut him up, because heck with debate. Then he comes right out and says that while Kokesh could basically use his voting power on Steemit to sink Graham's account, they don't want to do that because the Steemit community wouldn't like it. Gee, I wonder why, using your power to silence detractors. So Ben wants someone else to do the dirty work in a way that shuts Graham up but doesn't trace back to Ben and Adam. Now on the phone, on a conversation he had later, according to Graham, the guy that Ben was trying to hire told Graham that Ben wanted their organization to go after Graham and to, quote, take him out, end quote. Now, I don't think they all the way mean killing him, but, well, you can make up your own mind. So the guy Ben was talking to in the chat discussion, which there are screen captures of, the guy Ben is talking to then says that he has a kill rate of 100 out of 100. Now, I'm going to assume, hopefully, that he doesn't literally mean killing. But I assume he's just sort of, just using that terminology. But even the nicest interpretation of this is the guy basically saying that he's very good at completely destroying someone's ability to keep doing what they were doing before. And in this context, that means using whatever tactics to silence Graham completely, to stop him from being able to express his opinions and disagree with the Kokesh campaign. Ben Farmer then laments the fact that he doesn't have any way to reach Graham other than digitally because Graham lives in Japan. Think about that. Gee, why does Ben wish he could get to Graham in person? To do what? If the mindset exhibited here doesn't creep you out, I don't know what to say. It's like, darn it, he lives in Japan. We only can get to him electronically. We can't physically get to him. What the hell were you hoping to do if you could physically get to him, Ben? Then, like a weaselly little politician thug, Ben complains that Graham has enough influence on Steemit to make things problematic for us. And since most of the Kokesh campaign is coming from Steemit, according to Ben, they find that most distressing. Because what Graham saying what he thinks is making fewer people donate to the Kokesh campaign, and we can't have that now, can we? Better call a fixer to shut him up. Now, by the way, notice that Ben keeps speaking in first person plural. We have a troll and he's fucking with our money and it's problematic for us and our funding and our big donor, and we had to beg to get the donation back, and we can't just sink Graham's account. Does it sound like Ben is thinking and acting alone? And by the way, Ben acting as Adam Stug is not at all new and not unique. Here, I'm going to show a screenshot of an unrelated occurrence where Ben is making an unspecific threat against Tatiana Moroz for being critical of Adam, while openly admitting that he's making the threat on Adam's behalf. And there are plenty of others who can attest to the fact that both Ben and Adam aren't at all above harassing and threatening people who speak out against their campaign. But anyway, back to Ben hiring someone to destroy Graham's life. Amusingly, the thug for hire that Ben is talking to says that Graham is, quote, effective at being anti-Kokesh because he's putting forth a logical argument. Well, gee whiz. To which Ben responds that Graham is, quote, really spinning him into a new dimension of pissed off, end quote. Yeah, don't you just hate it when people logically dismantle your control freak agenda? Better call someone to take them out, I guess. Now, and then the other guy says that Graham's argument feels cogent because he lists so many examples, to which Ben responds, they're either false or out of context, which is a total lie, by the way. Ben then claims that he's not really bothered by Graham's own post, but by him commenting under posts by Ben and Kokesh and talking to their donors. Now, aside from the fact that that's still freedom of expression, which actual voluntarists value, Ben is lying anyway. Earlier on in the discussion, Ben specifically posted a link to Graham's own post, being critical of the Kokesh campaign, as an example of what he wants this thug for hire to put an end to. Now, I'm calling them a thug for hire. I don't know what else to call them. It's the people he's talking to try to hire them to mess with Graham in all these different ways. And Ben then says, quote, there's an additional troll, but I don't want to go after both of them or they'll know where it came from, end quote. Again, a perfect glimpse into the mindset of power-happy psychos. We want to destroy our critics, but we don't want people knowing that we did. Gee whiz, you're not thinking at all like a politician. Then the thug for hire says that their team of virtual assassins does not discriminate against children, implying that they aren't above targeting children, and Graham has a young son. In response to that, you see a momentary glimmer of humanity in Ben, who says that he is not comfortable with that, but then immediately says, so just keep that to yourself, followed by a smiley face. Yeah, nothing is so funny as talking about targeting children because you don't like their parent expressing his opinions. Ben, you evil piece of shit. Then the security specialist / thug for hire, whatever you want to call them, talks about looking up where Graham lived before in Chicago and in Indiana, and later they discuss figuring out exactly where, or trying to figure out exactly where Graham's living now by doing things like finding license plate numbers and other clues in Graham's videos and so on, and trying to sneak around and doing all sorts of electronic hacking and stuff to try to find out details about that. Now again, why do they want so much to know where Graham physically resides? Why would they put in so much effort to figure that out? In order to do what? If there's someone I disagree with, I say so in public. If I say I want to find out where he lives, wow. Nothing sketchy and creepy as hell there. Creepy as hell there, huh? And then, quote, goddamn, I fucking hate that guy, end quote, says Ben. Yeah, we can tell. And we can also tell how much you respect the right of freedom of speech and the self-ownership of people you don't like, Ben, and how much you give a shit about the non-aggression principle, which is exactly none. You're a fraud, you're a control freak, you're a thug. So, there's a brief taste of it. Again, if you want a bunch more, you can see Patrick Smith's video, which He's a lot more like objective and calm and analyzing the evidence. I'm not very calm, and in a minute you'll know why. There's an extra reason for that. Now, looking at these screenshots, and this is what I said from the very beginning, there's only two options. Either they were faked, they were just completely made up to look like Ben was saying that, or the Kokesh campaign was engaging in intimidation and harassment and essentially terrorism against people for merely expressing their thoughts. And if that's the case, that's bad. That's very, very bad. I hope I didn't really need to tell you that. Now, as for whether the screen captures were genuine, Graham has, since originally posting, he's shared a video from the virtual Thug for Hire, showing the conversation, scrolling through it on the phone. Which is way more difficult to fake than like still shots. Anybody can fake one of that. So that makes it a lot more difficult. But to me, what's way more damning even than that, because if you have enough time and effort and resources, you could fake anything. Although this would be a really weird thing to fake, like the conversation, well, whatever. But beyond that, beyond the difficulty it would take to fake something like this, there's the fact that when Graham first posted about this, a number of people, myself included, immediately tagged Ben Farmer, because we were friends on Facebook, and asked him to respond, to either deny or confirm that the exchange ever happened. Like, did this discussion really happen? And a bunch of people were tagging him, including supporters of Adam, saying, whoa, what the hell is this? You have something to say about it? Is this fake? What the hell is this? And Ben's response was silence, and then more silence, and then more silence. And he wasn't content to have himself be silent. He wanted to silence other people, kind of in keeping with the whole theme here. So he started blocking people who would mention it, and blocking people who just asked about it, including supporters who asked him, like, hey, what's this? Is this real? And then when I tagged him, again, I think this was a couple days after I posted about it, after it came out and it was all over the place. And I said, Ben, when are you going to say something about this? You can't just not say something about this. His response was to unfriend and block me on Facebook. Now that that was more than, this whole thing came out more than a couple weeks ago, as far as I know, he hasn't said anything about it. There's no response. Well, the only thing I've heard of from Ben is that when asked by a friend of his about this, Ben said that he wouldn't comment and he was waiting for things to develop. Whatever the hell that means. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone outright faked a screenshot like this, trying to make it look like I said something, like misquote me and make up a thing to make it look like I texted that, especially something this serious, where it's talking about just terrorizing somebody for disagreeing with me, the first thing I would do 10 seconds later is in public say, I did not say that. That is totally fake. They absolutely made that up. But this came out and Ben didn't say it. And days passed and he still didn't say it. And weeks passed and he still hasn't said it or hinted at it. He hasn't even bothered to deny it. He's done the thing of, well, I'm just going to not mention it and hope it goes away. In fact, the entire freaking Kokesh campaign has been acting about as guilty as anyone could possibly act in response to doing this, doing exactly what politicians always do when they get caught doing evil crap. Which is a little bit funny because I made a post on Facebook about, here's what I expect them to do. And it ran right down the list. Remain silent, hope it goes away, and when it doesn't, start demonizing the victim, or downplaying the seriousness of it, or claim ignorance, or I had nothing to do with it. It was, you know, the whole routine that we've all seen politicians do it over and over again. And then when Patrick Smith asked Adam about it directly, he said, well, that's the first anyone's told me or asked me about it. Like, oh, I'm totally ignorant. I had no idea about it, which was a lie. Absolute friggin' lie. Earlier, Luke Stokes, a supporter of Adam on Steemit, politely asked Adam if he's going to respond to the accusations, and there's a screen capture of Adam days after this thing came to light. Finally, what he had to say was he's acting all indignant and asking as if, like, do I have some obligation to respond to, as he put it, lies and hysteria? Trouble is, Adam also denied any knowledge of it happening at all. So basically, I never heard about that and knew nothing about it, but it's all lies and hysteria. If you don't know anything about it, how the hell do you know it's lies and hysteria? And Adam mostly wanted to focus on the fact that Ben no longer works on his campaign. He doesn't work here anymore. He doesn't work here anymore. Well, he totally did when this happened back in May. He was totally Adam's chief campaign strategist. And I dealt with him, and we had discussions and debates in different places with Ben. I mean, he was obviously pushing for Adam. He was obviously one of the bigwigs trying to make that campaign work. He absolutely worked for him. And that's just another step in the politician game. Pretend you don't know, had nothing to do with it, and whatever evil crap your underlings get caught doing on your behalf, pretending, well, they were just acting rogue and blah, blah, blah. Nice joke. Now, consider this carefully. If someone showed you evidence that seemed to show that somebody you work with, and work with closely on a regular basis, was doing some seriously evil shit, and let's say it's something you really didn't know about, and this just came to light, and people are talking about it all over the place. It's all over Steam, and it's all over Facebook, and people saying, whoa, what the hell is this? Would your response be to say nothing and stay silent and still say silent and still say nothing, and then try to sort of indirectly malign and demonize the target of the evil shit, in this case Graham Smith, while characterizing his concerns for his own safety and the safety of his family as hysteria? That is not the response of an innocent person. That is not the response of someone who didn't know what was happening. And that their own behavior is the most damning thing here. Likewise, the responses from Adam's current campaign manager, I think like he went from trying to be president, not president, which doesn't mean anything, to like senator of Arizona or whatever. But his current campaign manager showed a similar mentality when a bunch of people were asking him, do you guys have a response? Do you have anything you want to say about this? Like, is this real? So he didn't respond, blocked people, downplayed the seriousness of what happened, and just sort of vaguely said that, well, if any real evidence of wrongdoing is ever shows up, there would be consequences to Ben Farmer. But the Kokesh campaign is all about non-aggression, yada, 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 yada. Meanwhile, he's showing no actual concern for the evidence and no acknowledging of the evidence, no sympathy for Graham's concerns of being targeted with this evil crap. And then the campaign manager doing the same routine of insulting and blaming the intended victim of the harassment and intimidation. And then the guy blocked a bunch of people, including me, again, who were simply asking for some sort of response or explanation of the issue. Like, you kind of need to say something about this. And a bunch of Adam's supporters were even saying, well, I don't know what this is, and maybe I don't trust Graham, but do you want to say something about it? And they just don't. They have nothing to say. So, that's the short version. Again, you can go to Patrick's video for more of the direct evidence and to see the whole discussion and all that. I'm done being subtle or quiet about this. At this point, there's a huge amount of evidence, direct evidence like this, and lots of anecdotal evidence showing that Adam Kokesh is not merely arrogant. He's not merely narcissistic. He's not merely self-centered and self-absorbed. He is genuinely hostile, malicious, vindictive, and dangerous, and is an actual threat to the safety, well-being, and possibly the lives of actual anarchists. And of course, in public, like all politicians, Adam puts on the good show about how we should all work together and help support each other and not tear each other down. And then behind the scenes, his campaign is doing this evil shit of trying to destroy people for publicly disagreeing with his political aspirations. He's a politician. He's not genuine. He's not about freedom. He's not about peaceful coexistence. Like every politician, everywhere, always, he's about trying to use a worthwhile message to enrich and empower himself. Now, and at this point, a lot of people have now personally seen Adam's mask slip. They've seen past the politician grin to the unstable, power-happy sociopath beneath. And a number of the people who have gotten closest to him are now, they're beyond just uncomfortable. They're genuinely afraid to be in the guy's presence. And there's no shortage of people who are, happy to tell you about that and happy to tell you about their experience, and you can go find it, or, people can post their accounts under this video or whatever. The thing is, toxic narcissists and sociopaths are good at faking compassion and faking real humanity and concern. Trouble is when they don't get what they want, when they can't deceive someone into feeding their ego and their agenda and their own interests, then the real them comes out, shines through, and it ain't pretty. And I actually did a talk about this at the last Anarcho-Stalinist, and I intentionally didn't name anyone by name, including Kokesh, but he was absolutely an example of what I was talking about. Now, I have my own little, fairly tiny example from my own experience that happened when I was critical of Adam's campaign after Ben Farmer, same Ben Farmer, said that they had decided to take donations meant for posting bail to get Adam out of jail. They decided to donate that to the Libertarian Party instead. It was like $6,000, and I was critical of that. And Adam then made a video in which he said nothing about the issue itself, nothing about the actual thing I was talking about, but in a just openly hostile and emotional way, like attacked me personally. Cowardly little Larkin. For talking about the issue, even though what I said was based entirely on what his campaign said happened. It's right from Ben Farmer's own statement, before Ben Farmer then completely changed his story about it twice. So yeah, I've seen how Adam responds to criticism when the facade slips. Now, he quickly, as far as I could tell, because I went back to check, I think he quickly took that video down afterwards, probably because he realized what it made him look like, and he had to quickly put the mask back on to pretend not to be a psycho. And in recent years, I've heard plenty of stories from people who were up close and personal with Adam about the difference between the act he puts on versus the real him. And again, the act he puts on, as long as you're going along with him and helping him out and feeding his whole agenda, he can be perfectly charming and so nice. It's when you start to doubt his agenda and try to pull away and not be his supply, the terminology concerning narcissists, then you see the real him. Just like with all politicians. And I've heard more, first-hand accounts of this, of people's experience with Adam, than I can even remember. And until this video, I haven't publicly talked about any of it. And in retrospect, that may have been a mistake on my part. I didn't want the friggin' drama. I was like, if you're going to be talking about voluntarism, I don't care if you're a creep or whatever, just, forget the drama. In retrospect, maybe I should have talked about it, because the stories are everywhere from people who were there, not second and third hand, but people who experienced it themselves. And I've talked to a bunch of them, and it's bad. And so, while I kept my mouth shut about a bunch of the stupid drama, this shit I can't be quiet about. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. And this is not something that should just fade away and be forgotten because the perpetrators decide not to respond to the allegations. Oh, people will just forget. We can be evil psychos, but people will forget. Real voluntarists and anarchists get enough harassment and sabotage and thuggery from the state. We really don't need this shit coming from supposed voluntarists. Can you even imagine what this would look like if these people got their hands on real power? This is when they have nothing, and they're already doing this. There's a reason I compare this mentality and these tactics to Joseph Stalin. Destroy any dissidents. Now, by the way, if I seem to be taking this personally, there's another reason for that. You see, while Ben Farmer was trying to hire someone to harass, terrorize, and generally destroy the life of Graham Smith, he also asked if the thug for hire wanted a bigger target to go after. Now, given that the whole context of this, that whole discussion, was the Kokesh campaign losing support, including financial support, on Steemit because of people criticizing Adam's campaign. And given the fact that I had posted a 3-part series on Steemit laying out the reasons, philosophical and practical, for why I strongly oppose Adam's presidential campaign, I think I might know who that bigger target was going to be. And I can't really think of anyone else he might have been talking about. Now, if it was someone else, if they weren't thinking of me just yet, there's still no reason to think they wouldn't have gotten to me down the road, because I was definitely on the list of people who was very vocally opposed to their political agenda. So maybe you'll understand why now for myself I've made a decision. I will never again support any organization, any publication, or participate in any event which will have anything to do with Adam Kokesh. Someone who, from all indications, from all the people I've talked to who have first-hand experience, he is someone who invites and allows and encourages his underlings to, and I'm going to quote now from the people who actually do this shit. This is how they described what they do when Graham asked them. To, quote, cause personal, financial, and interpersonal pain and loss using harassment, threats, and basically terrorism because someone had the gall to publicly express a certain opinion. If you're okay associating with unstable, dangerous psychopaths, that's your choice. I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I don't really think that any other voluntarist should be okay with it either.